Hey, PJTV fans, I'm Andrew Klavan, and they wanted me to talk with somebody as intelligent and charming as myself, so they made a clone of me, but unfortunately they dropped it on the factory floor. Bill Whittle, welcome.
They dropped me into the hair vat head first.
Bill, your question today comes from J.T. O'Connell. Can freedom survive in a society overwhelmingly dominated by thin-skinned people?
The answer is yes, so long as they don't vote.
And now I'm offended. I'm offended.
I'm glad you are.
That.
It's my entire purpose in life. Yes, you can have a free society where there are large numbers of thin-skinned people, so long as they do not amass the political power to make you stop talking. And I corrected myself halfway through the sentence. Not just the political power, because they don't use political power to make you stop talking. They don't have the legal right to do that. The First Amendment, in fact, is still the law of the land. So thin-skinned people don't get you to stop talking by using the coercive power of the state to come in and throw you in jail. Thin-skinned people get you to stop talking by making you feel that you're such a wretched person and by ganging up on you morally and ethically to the degree that you censor yourself. They don't have to censor you. They use social proof to make you censor yourself. And I know how you feel about Donald Trump, and I feel pretty much the same way about Donald Trump. But the reason Donald Trump's numbers are as high as they are and the enthusiasm level is as high as it is because Donald Trump will say something and people will go, I can't believe he said that.
That's right. That's right.
And
That's exactly
they
right.
don't like being told what to think and what to say. And I think they'll follow him anywhere. I saw Pat Condell, Pat Condell,
sure.
the British. He was talking about this and he said, we just want the truth. And he said, we've been so starved from the truth in the West, and we've been told what's untrue for so long, and that we not only need to believe it, but we need to be enthusiastic about our belief about things that we know are not true. He said that the West and the American people are so starved for the truth that they're going to take the truth wherever they find it. And even if it's as poor a source as Donald Trump, the ability to hear the truth being spoken by somebody is the number one psychological need of the American people, specifically in the West in general. And that's why he has the power he has. The left has created Donald Trump by the suppression of the truth.
I so totally agree with you.
And let me just go ahead and say this about thin-skinned people and Donald Trump. I'm not going to get into the whole safe space thing. We all know what that is. We don't even have to get into it. This is weak-minded infants who cannot bear the stress of having a different thought in their heads, and so they try to block it. I'm not going to get into the whole millennial thing. I kind of want to focus on Trump for a second here. I am terribly, terribly, terribly concerned about this man and the kind of president he would be. But I am coming to the point where I have begun to think seriously now, rationally. I'm beginning to rationally think that the political correctness, that the groupthink, that the control of the media, this iron triangle between Washington politicians, New York news media, and Hollywood pop culture, that this big, giant, rotating D that locks out half of the conversation and simply will not allow it to be heard, that I am coming to the point where if all Donald Trump does is destroy that, if that's all he does, I'd be willing, I think, to look at the wreckage that might follow that, because frankly, it is this unwillingness to speak the truth, the inability to say what you know is true, that is not only destroying this culture socially, but it's destroying this culture philosophically, ethically, and morally. The reason America exists is so that people can speak their mind. And when you have this unbelievably powerful combination of legislative power from Washington, the control of the information stream in terms of the news media in New York, and the storytelling of the mythology that constantly pushes this left-wing narrative from Hollywood, if this thing is not destroyed, there is no future for the country. And I'd be willing to take the wreckage of nuclear war if that's what it took to destroy this fundamentally anti-American, fundamentally anti-freedom, fundamentally anti-human catastrophe that we've had foisted on us.
Listen, I completely agree with you about the effect of political correctness. It is one of the worst things that ever happened to the country. It's tyranny by another name, and it's lying, which is like bad. Like here it is. It takes you and me combining our heads together to say lying is bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how smart do you have to be? Well, apparently you have to have a pretty good education before you can come up with lying is bad. I mean, that's a tough one for the left to deal with. But let's talk about Donald Trump for a minute, because I totally agree with you. He is a creation of politically correct culture. He would not exist as he exists today without politically correct culture. if there were no political correctness, he would just be a bore. I mean, he says things, just because there's political correctness doesn't mean there's not bad behavior too.
Correct.
He is badly behaved. He answers principled attacks with personal attacks. He answers personal attacks with personal attacks. He answers everything with a personal attack. It's thrilling to watch. I who really despise the man, I think he's a demagogue with fascist tendencies. I don't think he's a fascist, but I think he's a demagogue with fascist tendencies. I think he has less of a relationship to the Constitution than Obama does, and that's saying something. Obama at least has a kind of, antagonistic, ill-educated, smug relationship with the Constitution, but it is a relationship. You can see it. You can see him trying to work around it sometimes. Trump has no relationship with it. He would blow his nose on the Constitution. He has no sense of it whatsoever. If truth were a common intellectual currency, Trump would have no power. Because what power would there be in saying maybe we should restrain Islamic immigration until we figure out what's what? What strength would there be if everybody was saying that? It's kind of an obvious idea. I'm not saying that we should stop all Islamic people from coming in, but let's stop for a minute. Let's see what we've got here. That's not a crazy thing to say. It's only crazy. It's only crazy in a world of lies. It's only crazy in a world in which Hillary Clinton can stand up and say Islam has absolutely nothing, and I'm quoting, absolutely nothing to do with terrorism, and everybody kind of nods and says, "Yeah, well, thank you, Mickey." It's like. What kind of world is that? And it's funny because long ago I did an interview with Peter Robinson on his great show that he does, that unfortunately is not on PBS where it belongs. And he said to me, look at all your books and articles. You wrote a book called Empire of Lies. You have an article here called The Great White Lie. You talk about lies here, lies here, lies there. What is this with you and lies? And I said, that's all they've got left. And, everything that the left has ever done has failed. Everything they've done has failed. Sometimes it takes 70 years to fail. Sometimes it takes 10 minutes, but it always fails. But all they've got left is this system of lying where to say that it fails becomes a moral flaw. And I just want to come back to this point, Bill. Lying is bad. I mean, what does it take? Everything that we have, every good that we have is dependent on the truth. How can you know what's good until you know what's true? You can't. And, the other day, I'm watching that Making a Murderer show, and there's a debate about whether it's true and all this. And the New York Times, I don't want to read anything about it until I'm finished with it, but the New York Times has a headline that says defensively, Making a Murderer is not about truth, it's about justice. You can't have justice without truth. What the hell does that even mean? It's a nonsense, So that's where I come down. I mean, I just think that, that speaking the truth is the essence of everything good, and that's what we have to defend. Basically.
Just like to come back just to answer the second part of the question about thin skin
yes.
issue. The thinner your skin is, the thinner your skin is going to get. The more you protect yourself from, try to protect yourself from, offensive ideas, the more sensitive you become and the thinner your skin gets and vice versa. And I think the only thing you have to do to look at this is to look at the Dean Martin roast from 30 or 40 years ago. Because these people would make the kind of jokes that simply could not get on the air today. Simply couldn't. You simply couldn't say the things that they said. That's kind of depressing in itself, isn't it? That trend line in terms of freedom. We used to be able to say things, can't say these things anymore.
Yeah.
But when you look at the Dean Martin roast and you look at how these people interacted with each other, the affection and the love that they had for each other is so obvious. And that by poking fun at the reality of the differences, they not only don't make things worse, they make things so much better. Foster Brooks, my favorite moment, Foster Brooks was roasting Sammy Davis Jr. and he did 4.5 minutes of his staggering drunk, and he finally says, and of course the high point of his career was when Sammy Davis was performing at the casino, and Frank Sinatra called down to the front desk and said, "Send up the black kid to dance for me while I shave." And Sammy Davis lost his mind. He was laughing so hard. And I know what a fake laugh is because we've seen it on the modern roast. We've seen Trump being roasted or Shatner being roasted. Sammy Davis lost his mind because by joking about it, by bringing it in front of people, you diffuse it. You take all of the steam out of it. You take all of the anger out of it. You put it in front of people and you laugh at it and it goes away. because you deal with it. You just deal with it. And we don't do that anymore. And we think that we're trying to protect ourselves by getting rid of all this stuff, but all we're doing is taking all the oil out of the machine, and we're grinding metal now.
Yeah, it's you know, to end on this, Ricky Gervais, the comedian who hosted the Golden Globes, had a wonderful line the other day. He was joking about Bruce Jenner and Caitlyn Jenner. This was the joke. The line comes afterwards, and Bruce / Caitlyn Jenner, and he said, you know, she did wonderful things for transgender people, didn't do much for women drivers because she'd been in this accident. And so, of course, the Twitterverse goes and starts attacking Gervais, and Gervais said, "You have every right to be offended, but don't cry when no one cares." And I thought, like, that should be the title of a country song.
We need to poke political correctness in the eye.
Absolutely. That's all we have time for today. Let us know what questions you'd like answered by scratching them on your computer, that space below with a little pin.
Don't do that.
From Bill Whittle and PJTV, I'm Andrew Klavan. Thanks for watching.